Makes me feel like a man.
You want every team to lose any other game? Sorry. Bailey Zappi just put another dime. You know what? Wait. Time out. Are you kidding? That's what I'm going to try to drop a mic.
Welcome to the Warner Brothas Podcast. My name is Keenan, joined by my brother Kyle. First 2 days of NBA basketball, these playoffs have already given us blowouts, they've given us close games, they've given us a lot of moments. Kyle, how are you feeling about the playoffs and the weekend so far?
Man, opening weekend was great. I alluded to it the other day when we recorded on Thursday. I was saying how, we talk all this, give our opinions throughout the regular season, talk about what players we believe in, what teams we believe in, this and that, how we think the playoffs will go. And then you actually see the playoffs, like for the first time in a year, and you realize, and again, this is just me, but every single time I'm like, oh man, I forgot what the intensity's like. I forgot what the pace is like.
Yeah.
I already feel a way about certain series that maybe I picked one way. I'm already maybe thinking the other way. So, it just gets me every opening week, and I'm like, oh man, I forgot. Why did I doubt this player? Why did I doubt this team? Like, what was I thinking about XYZ? So that was my main reaction.
Yeah.
That was my main reaction on top of other things.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. It's like, oh, wait, they are prepared. Wait, like Jared Allen said last year when he was going in, he was like, yeah, we weren't ready for the intensity and like how like the difference in the game, and that's obviously like one of the reasons what led to them losing.
You said the lights. The lights were too bright.
Yeah. No, so it just really showcases that even the players, like the new players, don't even understand the difference in everything. The way the game is covered, to the way you have to go into the game, preparation for the game, and then obviously playing the game and how the game is called, how much slower the game and the pace plays. So, do you want to go in order of like what the games were, or do you have a specific series that's like on your mind that you're like, I gotta talk about this first?
Learn how to live free from pain with LifeWave. Call 1-888-800-9369 now. Migraines gone in minutes. Leg pain gone. Back pain vanished. Call 1-888-800-9369 and speak with Fierce Manson now.
Doesn't matter to me. We can go in order of, how they appeared. We can go wherever you want to start.
We'll go in order of how they appeared, and that means we're starting with the Cleveland Cavaliers. We talked about Jared Allen just barely, and the Orlando Magic. What were your thoughts on this series and game one, I should say, thus far?
My absolute main takeaway was I could not believe how locked in the Cavs were. Like you said, you just mentioned Jared Allen and how they approached the playoffs last year. And I think they were a team, as soon as the Donovan Mitchell trade happened, we looked at that. Specifically, we looked at the starting five of their roster and said, okay, that's something right there.
Yep.
You got Donovan Mitchell, you got a great point guard in Darius Garland, a young up-and-coming point guard in Darius Garland. Mm-hmm. You got Jared Allen and Evan Mobley as your front line, which is, non-traditional nowadays. Traditional in the 90s and 2000s to have two bigs like that. But both, potentially defensive player of the year type bigs. So you say, okay, it doesn't even matter what your guards look like from a defensive perspective. Like, you got something there. Like, it's just a different team with a lot of talent. Now you got Strus at the 3. You've got a lot there, and they've got an actual decent bench. So, and there was moments during the regular season where they went off on a tear. Seemed like they were facing lesser competition. Seemed like when they faced playoff competition, you'd get mixed results. So I didn't really know what to expect. And you got all these Donovan Mitchell to Brooklyn or to the Knicks rumors going on again. So I didn't really know what to expect. I was expecting, honestly, like not a well-oiled machine. And they looked like a team that'd been there a couple of years, more than just 1 year together, really, this core. So Mobley, he kind of debuted a new corner 3 too, from what I've seen. The ball movement was great. Donovan Mitchell looked good. He looked spry. Their defense, though, looked incredible. I was want to say I was shocked by that because, like I said, we knew what their defensive potential was, but they at some points were just locking the Orlando Magic down. And I mean, these are two teams, so that really shouldn't be a surprise. But just the energy and the effort they brought, I was a little taken aback by that, honestly. So, I mean, if that Cavaliers shows up on most nights, Keenan, that Cavaliers team shows up on most nights, they could compete with a team like Boston. They could give problems to a team like Boston. So that was interesting to me. It's just, we'll see if that shows up over the course of a 7-game series, every game. So
they actually have a team that can compete roster-wise with Boston. Like, obviously, Donovan Mitchell we've seen Donovan Mitchell go for 40s and 50s in the playoffs, obviously going back and forth. So you have that star who can play with your team's best player. Darius Garland, he can go get a bucket. He can control an offense. Max Strus, we clearly saw him on a playoff run to the finals last year. Gonna take and make big shots. Jared Allen and Evan Mobley could give a little bit of fits to Porzingis. Porzingis is a unicorn in his own right. So, like, obviously he's gonna get what he gets. But that team has enough to where matchup-wise it's not going to be too awkward playing a team like Boston, but that's obviously if they get there, because the Orlando Magic are a true formidable opponent. They could definitely win this series. But the one thing, too, that we're talking about that kind of shocks me, like the scores of these games. You're like, yeah, and you see like a lot of 130s, 40s, 150s even in the NBA today, and then you're like, oh, 97-83. That's probably where a lot of these games are going to live. Like, the Timberwolves putting up 120 was like a lot. And you're like, oh, that's what a lot of teams almost average is 120. So it's just like always the pace of play and then the physicality, the shooting percentage. You see it across the board with like all your great stars. Like Steph's a 48% shooter from the floor. He shoots like 45 in the playoffs, and that's like a lot of people because the game, it's just so much harder to get shots and teams can game plan for you. But I agree with you 100%. Cleveland looked locked in. They look like a team that wanted to right the wrong of last year, which obviously was going down in the first round to a New York Knicks team that played well, but they look good, and they do look like a team that can compete moving forward. Obviously, we'll see where they can get to, but I really like what they put forth. Magic played hard. They just don't have enough shooting at the moment, but that's where their defensive presence needs to come in, get transition stops, or get buckets in transition from stops, and then we'll see going forward from there. But unless you have more on this game, the second one, I believe, was a Western Conference game. I want to say it was. Go on, Ty.
I was just going to comment on the home court advantage that Cleveland has, too.
Yes.
I kind of thought home court advantage was going away almost, but this year especially, just already, I mean, it's a just quick reaction, but it seems like it does matter. Like the Cleveland crowd, that's one you forget, like brings it, whether it's the Cleveland Browns or the Cleveland Cavaliers. Like they really do have great home crowds. It's a true sports city.
Low-key, one of the best fan bases.
Really is. Good Midwestern fan base for sports. So, I mean, that's just a factor. Like, if they can get to the second round, for sure. If they can get to the second round, if they can, like, put pressure on these teams, because as we've seen, like, all these teams are banged up. You got a team, because they would be facing, who would they have in the second round, hypothetically? Are they in the Celtics?
Cleveland's Boston.
Yeah, so that would be tough.
Cleveland would be Boston.
I mean, if you can at least push Boston to 6 games, get a home game at a game 6, you know what I mean? That could do something. That's a team that's not going to be afraid, and that's a crowd that's not going to be as antsy as they were before, at least. So, that's something to look for.
And then game 2, I spoke about the Timberwolves dropping 120, the Timberwolves Suns game. I thought Kevin Durant was going to eat that game because of the fact that you're going to see a lot of Towns on him. You're going to see Naz Reid on him, maybe even Gobert on switches. And that happened. Kevin Durant had 31. Devin Booker really was nowhere to be found. Bradley Beal was nowhere to be found. And Ant Edwards was all found anywhere you wanted him found. First half, 10 points, got kind of in foul trouble, got out of rhythm, but the Timberwolves still showed their depth. They showed why they were a 56-win team and the most wins since the 03-04 team that got to the conference finals with MVP KG on it. And then the third quarter happens, and you see why Anthony Edwards is a true superstar in the game. 18. He said this was one of the best moments of his life. I don't know if you saw that or not, because KD's his favorite player of all time. But he was putting in work on whomever you put. Yeah, whoever you wanted in front of Anthony Edwards, didn't matter to him. He was putting in work on everybody and getting his buckets. So this Timberwolves team, as always, like, we're coming in like, I don't know about him. Like, Anthony Edwards could change all of that because he's really a star of stars. So I loved watching that game, and shout out to Anthony Edwards and that team.
Yeah, it was a good game. This is one of my favorite matchups of the entire playoffs. I think tonight we're going to get a great game. I think the Suns are going to respond. Like you said, Anthony Edwards did what he had to do.
Oh, yeah.
But they did what they were supposed to do. They held home court. You're supposed to win game one. That's why they wanted, the one or the two to get to this spot where, they're the three, but that's why they wanted top three seeds where they could have a home game against a veteran team like the Suns. Look, I think, like you said, Booker and Beal didn't really show up game one. KD was cooking from the start. He even had Gobert on him from the start, which was interesting. I would expect they come out guns a-blazing tonight. Even if they're down 2-0, I'm not considerably worried about that, especially how Phoenix plays at home. But you'd like to see them go away with a split, especially since I think this is a game or a series that goes 7. Like you said, Keem, with the low scores, that's where Phoenix has an advantage with their 3 perimeter scorers, with their shooting. Minnesota has the team to combat that with the size that they have. And, even at their wings and their guard positions, they have good size. So, I don't know. This is a fascinating matchup for me. I did not expect that much of a blowout in game one. Minnesota kind of pulled away. But, hey, overall, like we said, styles make fights. And, I expect Phoenix to respond.
Oh, absolutely. Couple more points on Phoenix, and we'll move on. Grayson Allen, 0 of 3 from the floor, 0 of 3
He's out
from
there getting
3.
cardio.
That can't. I was gonna say that can't happen. They need to get Grayson Allen going. Obviously, Book was 5 of 16, and then I wanted to say on the other side is Karl Anthony Towns played a good game. When he got matchups with KD in the post, he was aggressive, getting to the basket, getting to the free throw line when need be. So I like the way Karl Anthony Towns played game one, and if he can continue to do,
he had some nice passes.
What was that? Sorry,
from the high post.
Oh yeah, he had nice passes. So obviously, as Kyle loves to call him at times in the playoffs, Kitty Cat Towns.
I think
he actually had a good
nickname.
game one, and if he can truly be a second.
I think that's a Keenan original.
Oh, we've all called him Kitty Cat Towns. Don't worry. I was just saying, we've called him Kitty Cat Towns, but I'm just saying, you were real upset when I had him over Bam. You and Cam were real upset when I had him over Bam in the starting a team kind of player ranking. Obviously, I think Bam's a better complementary player than Karl Anthony Towns. But you know what? That's another argument for another day. Karl Anthony Towns played... Another argument for another day before we get into a 35-minute argument, because we could get into 35 about so many things.
I don't know about that either.
No. Cat's not a franchise player. No. I don't think Bam's a franchise player either. I think that Bam's a very good player, but I wouldn't say he can be he's not your number one on a championship team.
But I'd say he's a franchise. I'd say he's a franchise.
Bam's a very good player,
though. He's someone you'd want on your team for 8 years.
I would still want Cat on my team. I think Cat's in that kind of same boat as Bam. Just obviously they have different skill sets. Cat as a number 2, you're happy with. We'll see more in the playoffs if he can kind of right the wrongs of what he did before. We'll see more. But right now, as a number 2, we'll see definitely, because obviously you can change your playoff narrative, of course, and how he's been playing, but. Love how he played in game one. If he can continue that, he can change that narrative of not showing up in the playoffs. But we go to the next game that had a lot of emotion, was up and down. I was kind of confused. It was Knicks Sixers. Loved it. I went from Embiid playing well, off the glass, dunk, and then I thought he was out for the entire season, the rest of the season, and maybe the Team USA, and then he comes back in the second half. They play great. but obviously it was Josh Hart down the stretch. They won that game with Brunson not being great, which is a very good sign because they were able to win this game in other ways. Tenacity, good shooting. Also, Miles McBride. I don't know who he thought he was off the bench, but this series is going to be great. This series, all the series, literally other than Boston, Miami, and that's just because Jimmy's out. I think every other series is going to be great. And this one I'm very excited
Yeah, I
for
cannot wait for game 2 tonight. Wild game. The most memorable moment of the weekend for me, that Embiid dunk. That was dunk of the playoffs so far. I don't see many dunks topping that. Off the glass over somebody. And you're like, oh shit. And then as soon as he lands, it's another oh shit moment. Because like you said, I think we all thought he was out for the season. I thought it was over before it started type thing. And he was playing really well up to that moment. He leaves for the rest of the first half, surprisingly comes out for the second half, and then seems pretty tentative. Like, he did some good things for them, but he did not seem nearly as aggressive. Hopefully that's not the case tonight. Hopefully he comes out with a more aggressive, mindset. But that makes me nervous for my Sixers pick. Obviously, you picked the Sixers as well. Like you said, it was a typical Knicks win.
Same.
Jalen Brunson having Josh Hart making insane threes at the end of the game, whether it was open or he had a double clutch 3 there at the end that really put the game away. So no real surprise. Knicks. Sixers didn't get much help from their bench. Maxey played great, especially in the second half. So if you can get a consistent effort from Embiid and doesn't have to, take a quarter and a half out for injury, and Max can play the same, that's going to put pressure on the Knicks, because we know that Jalen Brunson, regardless if he has a good game or a high scoring game, it's going to take a lot of shots, because the Sixers can put the pressure on them. They can make it tough on them. They can make them. We saw him have a 61-point game with 47 shots. It's going to be a lot of shots for him. It's going to be a lot of volume. It's going to be ugly. So if they can just put the points up, it's going to be hard for the Knicks to match that night after night after night. You're not going to get that type of game from McBride in game 2, I wouldn't say. You might get it from somebody else, but they're going to have to do it by committee, especially if Brunson's going to have an off night. And I don't particularly see this type of series being a series where Brunson's shooting, 48% from the field or even 46% from the field. I think it's going to be very tough on him. So if they can get anything at all from Embiid, Keenan, I think it'll help a lot. No shit, right? But for real, he can't, he's got to, if he's out there, I'm going to talk about this with Halliburton later on, but if he's out there, if he's hurt, whatever, but you're still the biggest dude out there. They got Mitchell Robinson, whoever else to match up with you, but you could at least give them 20 off of some pick and roll action, some pick and pop. Make it as easy as you can for yourself. Maybe try to get a couple duck-ins, maybe some rebounds and putbacks. Maybe you're not 100%, but you really, if you're out there with his playoff history, he's got to find a way to come through after all. So I was glad to see him come back, but he's really got to put it all together. They can't really use that as an excuse, even if it was a painful injury, whatever happened Monday. I don't think we've gotten Saturday. I don't think we got the full extent of what the actual injury was, or if it was a re-aggravation of some sort. So I'll be very interested to see how he comes out.
Same. And I don't know, we saw it with Derrick Rose after obviously the first ACL and then continuously that knee, that it took him almost a few years, it felt, to really trust jumping that high and then landing again. I don't know if it's obviously I'm not saying he didn't re-aggravate his knee at all, but I think some of it too is almost a mental thing of I don't know if I trust coming down on my knee. So I don't obviously I'm not, he was definitely hurt for sure and definitely re-aggravated it. But sometimes your brain can tell you oh, I'm in pain, and you're not really in pain, but your body kind of goes into a certain amount of shock because you don't trust your knee. So it'll be interesting to see how much of it, what he does because he doesn't trust his knee, or if it's just really that bad of an injury. I'm not doubting that he's not fighting through pain, of course, but
they had said
how much of it is I don't trust it.
They had said as much on the broadcast at one point. I think either before, I don't remember if it was before or after he came back from the injury, but they said how, a lot of his, he was back for about 10 games, how a lot of that was him just seeing how he reacted to his knee. And he wasn't really sure if he was he was physically ready to come back, but he wasn't sure if he was mentally ready to come back. And I'm thinking like, you know, maybe it was best if you just sat out altogether if that was the case. And it does kind of seem like that was the reaction, like almost like it did hurt, but almost like he reacted like he was too hurt just because of how forcefully he landed. Because obviously, I mean, you just don't usually when you see someone's knee buckle like that with that amount of force, because he landed straight on it, usually like, all right, you know, if it's not season ending, you're in a Jimmy Butler situation where you're out for a few weeks at least. So and for him to come back second half, I was extremely surprised. So I think a little bit of what you said is the case where he's like, oh, I'm hurt. Oh, I'm not that hurt. I'm all right. I guess I'm okay. You know, that kind of thing. Yeah. So we'll see. We'll see.
And not even being like a baby about it.
No.
But just like a legitimately like, I don't know. I don't know. But so hopefully going forward, we'll see what he can do.
Yeah. I mean, if he comes out tonight and you got, 15, 16 point first half and he's looking spry, like he looked great the other night. He looked much better than how he looked in the play-in game. He was moving a lot better. If he's moving around like that in the first half, again, I think just that presence alone of an aggressive Embiid can change the series. Because, man, if he's at 70%, they can get close, but he's got to at least, have the threat of a force, being at the rim, kicking out of a double team, attracting double teams, stuff like that. So we'll see.
Yep. And we'll see moving forward in game 2 tonight if he can do that. Then the final game of that Saturday slate, the game that upset me the most because, I'm just to let you know here, I had a $10 parlay to win $900, and I was 3 Jamal Murray points short of it. And I couldn't be more upset because of the fact that Jamal Murray took so many shots in the fourth quarter, he just couldn't hit. It was LeBron 25, AD 25, Jokic 25, LeBron 3 threes, and KCP 3 threes. Don't ask me why I was so confident in that. I was entirely confident in that. And then Jamal Murray 25 couldn't get it for me. I was taking a little bit of a chance, whatever. But fun first game. If you took last year's series and just plopped it this year, it was the same thing. Lakers get up, LeBron plays well, the Nuggets come back, then the Nuggets make every right play down the stretch in the fourth quarter, everybody makes a shot, and they win it. That's just how last series went. I hope it's not how this one goes because I'd love it more than just a sweep. But Nuggets look like the Nuggets as you would expect them to look. The Lakers looked very good, and then LeBron in the fourth kind of threw me off because he didn't look for the ball like for 9 minutes. I don't think he shot. I think he shot only once, possibly. He got to the line on that and got 2 free throws, but other than that, he didn't score in the fourth quarter. So that was interesting to me. But obviously, it's not like it hurts. The greatest thing is the same thing like the NFL. Overreacting to one game, I know people will, but then obviously a series can change if the Lakers go out and win game 2. Or the Nuggets on upset alert kind of thing. So always love the overreaction from game 1 to game 2, but I love the way the Nuggets played. I like the way the Lakers played. They need more out of Austin Reeves. D'Lo needs to shoot better, but I did like the aggression from Anthony Davis.
AD by and large has played well, especially the second half of the year, the last 41 games, I would say, last 40 games, whatever. They've gotten a healthy season out of him. They've gotten a healthy season out of Bron.
Yep.
And that's why it was so concerning why they were, in the play-in, getting so many games from LeBron and AD, because we wouldn't have expected that going into the year. And I really loved their supporting cast. That's why I was so high on them really all season. I really never left. I mean, I had them this was my conference finals preseason, actually. And I picked the Nuggets in 7. And part of me wanted to pick the Lakers just because I love their roster so much. Just because I do like how they can match up star for star with Denver. But I don't think they have the perimeter defense. You mentioned LeBron being maybe absent in the fourth quarter. They look fatigued. There's that one clip of him and AD. They missed like 3 or 4 layups there at the rim. And I believe that was in the fourth quarter. I mean, you could just tell they were tired. And you got playoff Jokic and playoff Murray, which is a real thing. Like playoff Murray, let me emphasize that, and not playoff Jokic. Jokic does what Jokic does. He might just up his scoring, playoff Murray's an entirely different beast altogether. And honestly, I see Denver going up 2-0 tonight. That home court advantage in Denver is real. I thought if LA was really going to make this a 7-game series, like I thought, that they would have to go in with the momentum from the play-in game, with the days off, and win on Saturday. They didn't. I have a hard time believing they're going to bounce back or provide any, I don't want to say adjustments because that's not fair, but I don't really know what it is they could do to really stop Denver shooting, them getting as many chances as they want. Yeah, D'Angelo and Austin Reeves can score a little bit on offense, but Denver, they can combat that. If they go up to 15-20, they're going to be able to combat that. They have Michael Porter Jr. We saw Caldwell Pope shooting the ball well. I mean, you bet it for 3 threes. He had 3 threes in one quarter at one point. I think maybe even 4 in the third quarter. So, yeah, so I could see LA winning their home game, whatever day that falls on, but I see them going down 2-0 tonight. I really think they needed game 1. And I don't know. I think this is trending more towards a 6-game series now because I really thought if LA was going to make this a 7-game series, game 1 was the one for them to take care of. So we'll see.
LeBron needs to be aggressive early or aggressive. Like, I think the problem a little bit with game 1 is you could tell they came out like they really wanted to win. A lot of the times LeBron, when he was in his prime of primes, was a feel-out game for one of kind of like how this series is going to go. Not that he didn't care, but it was kind of more of like a dictate, kind of figure out how to go with playing chess rather than checkers kind of thing. If D'Lo and Austin Reeves can get going early, then cool for them. But like, it's going to be tough if they're not, because that means LeBron's going to need to have 35 plus really to win this game too. I don't see that happening. I agree with you. I think they go up 2-0, and then hopefully they get both in LA, because if the Nuggets get 1, it could be over in 5, but definitely would be over in 6. But that's Saturday.
Well, let's say.
Go on.
Let's say they get 25 plus again from AD and LeBron tonight.
Yep.
Like just 25 plus. We'll baseline it at that. And let's say Reeves gives them something like 15, 7, and 5.
Yep.
Like he's known to do. And let's say you get a really good D'Lo game of 22 points, maybe 4 threes, whatever. You get a good scoring effort from him, and then whatever you get from your bench and the rest of the guys.
Mm-hmm.
Denver can still combat that.
Oh, yeah.
They can still get whatever they get from Jokic and Murray, and then on top of that, Porter Jr. and Caldwell Pope shooting, right? And then on top of their bench, like whatever the Lakers do, they're ready for, and they can defend on top of that. Aaron Gordon, great game from him, by the way, the other day too. So, you get 12 from Aaron Gordon already right there. Denver's probably up just based off of that. Unless you're getting a terrible shooting night from MPJ and Caldwell Pope. It would take a bad game from both of those guys for them really not to compete.
And even then, that's when Jamal Murray can go off for 40. And then you're like, God.
Right. There's just so many ways they could beat you. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. There's so many ways they can beat you, and their offense is so efficient. You almost need a Hall of Fame effort from any team, it seems like. So.
Yep. And that's why Boston seems to be the team that you really think can compete with them, because you've got Drew Holiday, who can play defense on the perimeter, Derek White, who's a very good defender on the perimeter. They have 3 players who can get you 30 on any given night in Tatum, Jaylen Brown, and Kristaps Porzingis. Plus they have Sam Hauser, and they have Peyton Pritchard off the bench. Al Horford as a veteran there too, which is why Boston's really that team that can give Denver the fits that we think that could happen again with Denver. But again, we'll see if they get there. Maybe a team like the Timberwolves with their defensive prowess, or the Thunder, or the Suns, or whoever. We don't know yet, but we'll go and see.
I look at a team more like the Suns. Like if you're a team that can shoot the 3 well, I think that's what would have the best chance, combined obviously with a good enough defense. But if you can string together 15 to 18 threes, that's tough for anyone to beat. Like what we saw from Boston yesterday. Obviously, we'll get to that. But, I think the Suns could do that. That's where I think the Timberwolves would have a tough time. But obviously, like you said, they present a good matchup defensively. But I was going to say, if Alexander Walker's hitting threes like that, then maybe they'll be able to. But, I absolutely agree with that. But we'll slide into Sunday, and
Boston looked good. They looked very good. I don't love how they ended the game. The one thing for Boston in this series is don't be stupid. Just get it over with. Like, don't let this go. Like, that random series, I think, a couple years back against Atlanta, where Atlanta pushed them to 6. There's just no need for that. Like, were they in jeopardy of losing the series? No. Are they in jeopardy of losing this series? No. Just end it in 4, maybe 5, because Miami's grit can get them 1 at home. But just end it in 5. Don't let this go to 6 for no reason. There's no need to play extra minutes, especially with the games and the series you have going forward. But Boston looked just like what Boston's supposed to look like. I loved how Tatum played. When you limiting him and Jaylen Brown's dribbles kind of plays better. When he's dancing at the top, taking 15, 16 dribbles, that's not when the Celtics are at their best. I like having him at high post where it's 3 dribbles, make a decision, don't think about it, pull up or whatnot, because then it really gets the ball moving and Tatum doesn't hold the ball for 14 seconds. He really gets it for like 5 or 6. But anyway, Boston looked really good. There's not really much else to say. The Heat, you can't really do much with them, especially without Butler. So what you expected?
Yeah. I mean, look, if Miami's going to win a game, it's going to be game 3 at home. I do expect tomorrow's game to be a lot more physical. I expect it to be basically a hockey game. I think Caleb Martin showed what's going to be to come when he kind of body checked Jason Tatum out of the air in the fourth quarter. Looked a little bit dirty. Like, in the moment, I was like, that's not that dirty. And then I saw the replay back, and I'm like, never really seen that happen in a game check when someone's going up for a pretty clear defensive rebound. Like, he didn't really have a shot at the ball, Caleb Martin. So, looked a little dirty to me. So, that's what I expect tomorrow. I expect it to be extremely ugly. Maybe a disgusting score at halftime, something like 42-36, and then the Celtics pull away. But this is either going to be a 4 or 5 game series. Shouts to the Heat, though. The Heat are going to do what they do. They're going to compete. They're not going to care if they're down 35 points, 15 points, 5 points. It don't matter. They're going to be the same regardless. So, you know, good win for the Celtics. They looked explosive, especially from the 3. Porzingis looked good. So if you're a Celtics fan, you got to like what you saw for sure.
Of course. And one more thing, just real quick. Heat next year, because obviously you're more progressing. The Heat next year, I'm excited for. They just need to add one more guy. They need to add a wing defender who can kind of get his own shot when needed, not like a guy who's like just primarily a one-on-one kind of guy. And I would look to trade Hero for that, because you already have Terry Rozier, who's pretty much all of what Tyler Hero is. Tyler Hero in a new role probably could be better on a certain team, but if you put that with Jimmy, with Bam moving forward, you could get something. Because I like how Jovic has progressed this year. He's only going to get better. Jaime's only going to get better, and he's a veteran rookie, honestly. Like, he's been playing great basketball. I love how he plays. You have Duncan Robinson on the bench who can still shoot. Caleb Martin. So they have a lot of pieces there. They just legitimately, why Dame would have been perfect, because they just needed that. I know I was talking about more of a bigger wing, but like Dame would have been perfect because he would have had that one more. But
could be
someone like an OG.
Could be a Donovan Mitchell
kind of guy like that. I think would be perfect.
Could be a Donovan
Mitchell. Yeah, that'd be another really good one. Obviously everywhere. Paul George could fit anywhere, but like those type of guys where like they can play defense, can score when needed, but they don't need to have the ball in their hands all the time, I think would fit perfectly on Miami. We'll see what they can do in the offseason. Pat Riley's known to get aggressive at times in the offseason. Sometimes he's known to wait. It just all depends on what Pat Riley feels. But yes. Next game. The Clippers look good. If James Harden's playing like that, they can go win it all. I'm not even kidding about that. If James Harden's doing that, because they didn't even have Kawhi, but if James Harden's doing that, they can go win it all. So shout out to the Clippers game 1. Luka wasn't great. Zubac did what he needed to do in the paint. 20 and 16 roughly going into the fourth quarter. I believe that's what he ended with nearly. Let me check here real quick. Yeah, he ended with 20 and 15. So they just controlled the entire game. That first half they got up, and then the second half they just didn't allow Dallas to really get within more than 9. So shout out to the Clippers game 1. If they continue to play like that, they're going to be something. But obviously, Kyrie and Luka are not going to go down quietly.
Yeah, that's about as bad of a Luka game that you'll see. He made a lot of bunnies, especially from like the 6 to 8 foot area, just like wide open floaters. He missed countless attempts at that shot, it seemed like. And he got going in the second half, but it was really an ugly game for him. But this is exactly why I was not worried about the Clippers at any point to really make a deep playoff run. It's because they're so deep. They got a real roster. A. B. Ty Lue's a actual coach who's gonna like make adjustments and, you know, not stick to just like his whatever his mantra is as a coach. He's not gonna stick to that. He's gonna switch things up depending on the matchup. He's gonna, you know, put certain players here and there that you wouldn't expect. He famously did that Terrence Mann at the 5 back in the day against the Jazz when it was Clippers Jazz. Kawhi had a really good series.
Yeah.
Series flipped with him putting Terrence Mann at the 5, he's a 6'5" wing. You know what I mean? So he's gonna do that. I mean, he's famously a big architect of that 3-1 comeback, not just Bron and Kyrie. Like, he made a lot of adjustments. I think Richard Jefferson alluded to that on the broadcast actually yesterday. So that's why, I mean, I thought it was clear they were just kind of jogging through the second half of the season. So I didn't really take too much of their second half stats seriously about, you know, how much their defense had dropped off, how much they're off, like really their whole game entirely had dropped off. And I thought it was like, all right, we got a head start. We're going to get home court advantage. We can kind of coast from here, maybe get wins where we need. And we saw it yesterday. They can just clamp you up defensively, and that's without Kawhi. They have so much size. They have so many options. I've said it on here before. James Harden can be just as good of a point guard as he is a 2 guard. And we saw it yesterday. He can get anybody their shots.
I think he's a better point guard than a 2. At
this point, of course, yeah. But
I
mean more.
I know what you're saying. Like his peak 2 guard, his matches his peak 1 guard.
I've never seen a player. I've never seen a player who can just go from being a flat out 2 to just a flat out 1, just like that, and a flip of a switch. I mean, that's true versatility on his part. So when you got that and you can fall back on, okay, Kawhi's out, we got Paul George, James Harden, Russ, Norman Powell, like all these guys can create their own shots and give you like Russ's energy, like that stuff that is needed in the series. We saw him go at KD and guard KD last year as a 6'4" guard and be pretty successful with it to some degree. I don't know. And like you said, if Harden's playing like that, shooting the ball like that, you're going to be tough to guard or tough to be even with Kawhi. So without Kawhi, it's a luxury. With Kawhi, it's certainly a luxury. So, hey, in general, I think it's still going to be a long series. Don't get me wrong, but when stuff gets bogged up, when stuff gets bogged up, you really only have Luka and Kyrie to create shots for you if you're Dallas. So, yeah, they can get open threes all day, but when it comes down to it, Clippers just have more shot makers and a better defensive team. Dallas is not a consistent defensive team at all. So, it's a bad matchup for Dallas, I believe.
It's going to be interesting to see the adjustments that kid makes over there. And also, shout out to Ty Lue because he does a lot of things. PJ Tucker might make an appearance at some point in his playoff run as a veteran guy. So, like, at some point, I could definitely see PJ Tucker getting some minutes here and there in a big spot because Ty Lue's not afraid to do anything at any point in time. Then we go down to Milwaukee. Oh, wait, technically we'd go east to Milwaukee from LA. And Dame, 35 in the first half. Didn't score in the second half, but Dame 35 in the first half. He was put on a clinic doing what Dame does, and that's the Dame you're going to need if you're going to win this series. Obviously, as you were talking about, you can talk about kind of the Halliburton. He only had 9 points on 4 of 7 shooting. I know he had 8 assists, 7 rebounds, but you can talk about Halliburton in that side. But I did like how Milwaukee played. You got an efficient Chris Middleton game. You have Bobby Portis playing well. that team, they can really go 7 to 8 deep, probably 7 without Giannis, truly 8 deep with Giannis. They're playing better defense under Doc Rivers. So buy Giannis as much time as you possibly can, Dame. Don't make Giannis come back in this series. Get this series over in 6. Honestly, could be 5 if Halliburton's going to continue to be what Halliburton you see now. I don't think so. I think that it'll be 6, but it could be 5 if that's the Halliburton you're going to see.
Yeah, I mean, I picked Pacers at 7, and I feel like an idiot already. I mean, Dame did not look great at points this series or this season. He just looked like he lost his explosion, couldn't get shots off as effectively.
Yep.
So I thought maybe, okay, you got a big guard like Halliburton. Not that he's a good defender at all, but hey, he's going to at least make you work a little. The Pacers, they're not known for the defense, but still, if you've lost a step a bit, it doesn't really matter who you face. You know what I mean? If you're facing a young athletic team that likes to push, sometimes that's all the defense you need. It's just making you work on the defensive end if you're Dame. And Halliburton's just out there getting cardio. He has looked completely different from that in-season tournament run. I saw a stat yesterday. He's averaged, I think it was like 16 points, 8 assists since the in-season tournament. Obviously, he had a hamstring injury, so I want to be sensitive about that. But, he did come back, which was apparently for all NBA reasons, which then leads to contract reasons why he came back. Okay, cool. Well, if you made that quota, if you made the 65 game mark, and that was really important to you, if you're truly injured, sit out the playoffs. We don't expect you to beat the Bucks without Halliburton, right? So just sit out if that's the case. If you're truly hurt, you don't have real expectations in the playoffs. Sit out, come back next year, get healthy. You're apparently playing on Team USA too, so. But he seems healthy if he's out there, and man, he is the what do you call it? He looked like the throw ahead pass god. Why am I not thinking? What's that initial pass? It's not the outlet pass. I should know this as a fucking former point guard. What do you get the inbound? Just the throw ahead pass. He is the throw. Yeah. He's the throw.
It is a throw ahead.
I feel like
no. I was trying to think of the other term.
I feel like there's another name for it, but either way, he looked like a throw ahead pass god yesterday because that's about all he did. Off an inbound, let me push 2 dribbles quick, get it ahead. Like he had no aggression at all. Literally, all he did, Keenan. Like this is straight up. Like anytime Siakam had the ball, he would literally stand about 30 feet from the basket, not engaged in the play at all. And if the ball did find him back, after the initial push. If he got it back with about 12 seconds left, they would run a screen and roll for him, which he did not look to shoot off of at all. He didn't look to attack Dame off of it. Didn't look to attack anybody. And if he was open, maybe he would attempt a shot. But overall, he was just looking for whoever was the roller, whoever was the popper. He did not try to make himself an effective offensive player at all that game. And, you mentioned LeBron James with the feel-out games. I don't think Halliburton's fucking LeBron James. He's not that caliber of player. So, if it's your playoff debut, maybe you want to make a little more aggression than that. So I don't see why anything would change game 2 when moments like the Bucks obviously got up huge in that game. There was 3, 4, 5 moments where the Pacers got it down to 15, got it down to 12. We need a push here. What Halliburton do? He just chilled out in the corner. Just chilled out after he made his initial throw ahead pass off a rebound. He was cool. And if it was just in the half court, he was literally just chilling on the elbow, the deep elbow at that. He wanted no parts of their offense. I don't want to call him a fraud, Keenan. And again, I want to be sensitive to his injury. And I know it's just game 1, but I have not seen this stark of a contract because he had a good season last year. But last year into the in-season tournament, post in-season tournament, it's 2 very different players. Like no level of aggression. And if you want to say that's injury, cool, then sit if you want to. I mean, Embiid kind of took himself out of the game the other night, but that was a fresh injury. Halliburton's been playing for months now. He's been back since January, February. So I don't understand it with him. It's frustrating to see, especially again, because they had moments to get back into that game. And Keenan, if there's 2 things, maybe I'll elaborate this later because, I do want to get going on the next game. But you mentioned how the scoring changes, how we go from these 130, 125 games to, you might see a 97, 107 game now. That's always crazy to me, and I love it. And I don't really understand if you're going to get that product in the playoffs, why you wouldn't enforce a little defense if you're the NBA and the referees way before, after the All-Star break. Like, this is more of what we've seen after the All-Star break, but still not even to this degree. Why wouldn't you have a little more defense early on when people maybe are giving the NBA a chance again? I don't really know what other viewers are like, whatever. But why wouldn't you have more defense just overall in your season? Whatever. That always catches my eye, but it's still crazy to me. And it's been like this for a few years, but it's still wild to watch for me. When you see a team that might be down 30, let's say 25-30, and they get it to 20 and they act like they got energy. You know what I mean? Teams react now when they're down 18-20. They react how you used to react when you'd cut a 20-point lead to 10. And you're like, shit, we got it to 10. So for people that like just how much the 3-point matters, I know it's been that way for a few years, but the fact that teams really do act like they got energy and momentum down 20-18, that used to be pretty close to a death sentence. And now teams really believe, okay, we're back in it, 18-point lead. That always catches my eye when I'm like, damn, they think they got energy, and it seems like it's still an insurmountable lead. Not insurmountable, but a big lead at 18-22. So that's always funny to watch for me.
Yeah, and furthering that point, like watching the Mavericks game, they were down like 20. They got it down to 29, and like was 7 minutes left. They cut it to like 17, 15. And it was like, oh, is Dallas coming back?
And they're acting like it's a and their body language would be like something like that's a 12-point lead or
it was like this is a 4-possession game.
I mean? So it's always
and you're like, wait a second, this is like a 7-possession game. Like you have to really lock down right now, and that is the 3-point shot. That is how good these players are offensively. The Mavericks have a way for that too, because they obviously have Kyrie and Luka, who both can go off for 25 plus in a quarter. So like you have reason to believe that, okay, but like you're right, every team feels like let's just hit a couple threes, then we get that team rushing, and then we get out in transition, and a 25-point lead turns into 13 like that, and then you call a timeout, that team starts to get rattled and go from there. So you're right on that. Hopefully Halliburton can turn it up in game 2. There's no reason. If you're going to be playing, we're going to hold you to the standard of you playing. I don't care if you're hurt or not. If you're on the court, then we're going to judge you accordingly from there. We understand that it can't hamper you and changes things, but like, if you're that hurt, don't play. If you're that hurt, just don't play.
He can't be hurt. He can't be hurt because you see these bursts, and again, it's only off of these quick inbounds or only off of a miss where you see him push the ball. Again, 2-3 dribbles, throw ahead pass. That's apparently his signature move now. And then he just stops. He doesn't make a cut through the lane. He will literally stop 28 to 30 feet from the basket. And if the ball works his way back to him or works its way back to him, then okay, we'll run a screen and roll that I'm definitely going to give up. Giving the ball up. He's not even looking to score. Like that's all I saw from him. And that's what I saw the times I would check in on the Pacers in the second half of the season. You'd have these nights here and there where he'd go for 30 again, or he'd go for a big game, maybe a 18 and 11 assists, but he couldn't have been
all
more
against
non-existent in that game.
All against bad teams.
And there was moments, Keenan, you'd have TJ McConnell in there, and he would push the effort more a little bit. He put pressure on the defense more. He was trying to get to the mid-range. Halliburton wasn't even trying to see the paint. And the Bucks team have gotten better on defense.
Yeah.
But if you got Dame on you or someone like that, you really got to take advantage of that. And I focused a lot on Halliburton there. Props to the Bucks. Dame time was back in full effect. Clearly only in the first half, but that's really all they needed, especially if Halliburton's not going to assert himself. So you got a good effort out of Portis, a great game out of Chris Middleton.
Yes.
If that's what you're going to get, if this Bucks team, and that's the thing, we'll see how consistent this is. It hasn't been consistent at all this season. But if that's the Bucks team you're going to get, that's a threat to somebody. I mean, same thing I said about the Cavs. If they can all play that way consistently, it's going to be much different. We already got cracks in the armor, like we said, with Philly. If Embiid's going to be injured, and that's who the Bucks would get in the second round, hypothetically, if the Sixers won, you got to feel a little better, especially if you can allow Giannis to rest. Let him miss this first series. Let Dame and Chris Middleton, which after last night, I certainly think they can. If that's the case, the Bucks, they get even scarier, much scarier after that performance.
And we know Giannis can come back off of an injury and still put an instant impact. We saw it last year in the playoffs off of that injury. He still had a lot of impact. We saw it in the finals run where he came back and then averaged and got a 50-point in 12 game in game 6 of the finals. So off of an injury, he doesn't take long to get acclimated again into the starting lineup, into the swing of things. So that team can definitely be dangerous. And if Milwaukee does get to a conference finals against Boston, that means they're playing very good basketball. That could be something interesting. But we'll move on to this last game, a series that we were talking about before. And I was like, I think the Thunder could definitely, I don't think that would be like an easy series, but I think they could beat the Pelicans without Zion, or with Zion. Without Zion, I thought it was going to be a 5 to 6 game series. I think it's definitely a 6, the way this Pelicans team is playing. You've got a veteran in CJ McCollum, Brandon Ingram, only going to get better the more he gets actual wind and plays games because he's coming off of an injury. Trey Murphy's been shooting the lights out of the ball. Herb Jones, great defender. So this Pelicans team has a lot, and they've got a lot looking forward in the future. Unfortunate for them that Zion's not there because they can make true noise in the playoffs this year if he was there. But Shea showed late in the fourth quarter why he is one of the finalists for MVP. Probably will come in third, but again, if he wins it, as you and I were talking about on the last prediction pod, no problem. I'm not going to be like, oh my God, Shea won it, how? But no problem at all. I liked how this Thunder team played. They played aggressive. Chet, roaming. The real thing for them is they don't have legitimate size. Chet's tall and long and can definitely block shots, a very good defender, but they don't have any like actual girth to bother somebody. The good thing for them is they really only have Zubac to worry about until the conference finals after they go on. So like that's the good thing for them. And hopefully like Phoenix upsets the Nuggets so like they don't have to see true size, because the more size they see, the problem for them. But kudos to the Thunder for getting a tough win, game 1. Shea made plays late down the stretch. He did what MVP's caliber players are supposed to do.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Pelicans match up very well with this Thunder team, with or without Zion. I was surprised. I think the sideline reporter at one time said they're expecting Zion back if they can push it to, like a 5, 6, or 7 game series, which I was very surprised to hear. They said he was progressing well or something like that. I don't know. Maybe I heard them wrong, but I thought I heard them say that. Mm-hmm. And if that's the case, I mean, you're thinking about, or I'm thinking about it in the first half there when I'm seeing them match up. And I'm like, damn, I forgot how many of these players on the Pelicans have, been in real postseason games. Whether it's Ingram, whether it's Valanciunas, whether it's McCollum, even their younger guys have had either play in or first round experience. And their defense, they got people like Alvarado, they got Herb Jones, they got players like that who can really bother you. Ingram, when he's engaged, is a good defender. So they've got a really solid team all around, to where if you get a good game from Ingram and McCollum, they can just create shots for you and you're hitting your threes. You can give OKC more than a run for their money. And especially if you get Chet in foul trouble. I mean, like you said, they got no true size after that. You get him in foul trouble, or you run through Valanciunas a little bit, it could be a completely different series out of that. So if you can get 2 or 3 games of Chet in foul trouble, that alone can flip the series. Especially, again, if you're getting good scoring from Ingram, from McCollum, they move the ball well. Willie Green's a great coach, by the way. I love how he has those guys playing. So if they can just keep that up, buy Zion some time, much like the Clippers, much like the Bucks, if you can just buy a little time for Zion, he can get back at all. Man, he could put that series over the top for them, for sure. I really believe that. It was an interesting ending with the challenge. How do you feel about this, Keenan, when Mark Daigneault, he made the challenge? It was a 50-50 call. They ended up ruling it for the Pelicans, which I thought it was still 50-50 after the replay. But I could see if it was Pelicans ball and they thought it was Thunder ball, right? If Daigneault thinks it's their ball, I could see making that challenge. But if you got it already at a jump ball and it's 50-50, I like those odds better, right? Than just completely giving the ball back to the Pelicans. I didn't like that challenge at all. How'd you feel about it?
I didn't like the challenge either because it wasn't like you had Lou Dort jumping. I mean, Lou Dort can jump, don't get me wrong, but you had Chet, 6'11", long, and there's a good chance he could win that tip. And if you're wrong, it's such a 50-50 call. If you're wrong, you lose a timeout and you have one timeout left with like 2:30 left to go. That's not a good position. I think that was a coaching mistake, but again, it didn't end up hurting him, so it's okay, but I thought that was a coaching mistake. There was no need to call that to me, especially on a call, because people up top are seeing that. There's no way they looked at that and like, that's absolutely our ball. So to me, that wasn't a call that I would have challenged because he won. And I think he saved the challenge. They said he saved the timeout, and then they said he lost the timeout. So if he lost the timeout, wouldn't that have meant he lost the challenge? I don't really know what was going on there, but either way, they either would not have had a challenge or they still would have had their challenge, which was okay. But I didn't like the. So on the play, because they said that basically the evidence was that it was going to be Thunderball, he challenged it, and since they ruled it Pelicans ball, the initial explanation was, I think it was Tony Brothers, the initial explanation was, since technically the challenge was right that it's someone's ball and not a 50-50, they were keeping the challenge and then keeping the timeout. But then later, before the ball was inbounded on the broadcast, when they were trying to figure out the time exactly for it, they said that they actually didn't have the timeout. But if they didn't have the timeout, wouldn't that have meant that, which does make sense, but I just wasn't sure if that meant that they didn't have the challenge too, or if they did keep the challenge and just didn't have the timeout. I was a little confused on exactly what the ruling was, but like,
I forget which game it was.
They didn't make too much of a difference for the Thunder.
I forget which game it was yesterday. It was either that Bucks game or it might have been Clippers Mavs. It doesn't matter, but there was 2 challenges made by the same team. Like, they had a successful challenge earlier in the game, so they kept their challenge, and they got another successful challenge in the second half. It was either third or fourth quarter. And again, 2 successful challenges. The second one, they lost their timeout. Made no sense to me. That absolutely made no sense to me. 2 successful challenges, loss of a timeout. I don't get it. Weird. I
don't either, I guess, because they're taking time, but I have no idea.
I will say
no idea at all, but all I know is the Thunder pulled it out. Go on.
I was just gonna say this will forever be a complaint of mine. The softer the NBA gets, and it's been like this for the last few years. I really hate, Keenan, when you're making a move, swinging through with your elbow, like making a basketball move, and you happen to make contact with someone, or if you're just going to the rim and you're making a Euro step move and you happen to swing through and hit someone with your elbow. I really hate that that's now we got to check for a flagrant. I absolutely hate that. We already have enough that takes 5 minutes from the game. Luckily, it hasn't been too bad late in the game. Obviously, like we just said, that jump ball situation that they challenged yesterday, that took a little bit from the game late. But I hate it when it's late in the game because it takes the flow right out of the game, especially when it's just a clutch, tight game like that. Like, it just completely takes away from the flow of the game, whatever. But when you got to compound that with, all right, this guy clearly is making a basketball move and very clearly not trying to take this guy's head off with his elbow. Like, we made it, 50, 60 years in the NBA without that ever being a thing, without that ever having to be reviewed. And then the last few years here now, all of a sudden, that's a hostile act. Like, you use your elbows no matter what in basketball, especially if you're a post player trying to create space, especially when you're making a Euro step or a move to the basket. So for that to be another thing that you got to review for 3 to 5 minutes, it's kind of nauseating. Especially when you know immediately, the refs know watching in real time, okay, he's trying to make a move to get to the basket to score. He's not trying to fucking be flagrant. He's not trying to take this dude's head off. So it's annoying to watch. No. I can't stand it.
You're supposed to keep the ball high. The only person who really gets away with the ball low is James Harden. That's because he has such a strong grip on it. You're supposed to keep the ball high. You're obviously bringing it from one side to the other side for a fake. No one's doing a Euro step by just doing this, having the ball above their head and just holding it there. So I completely agree with you. It's a ridiculous call. It's unnecessary. There's no need for it at all. It's no need, for the review of that call. Like, just, if you want to call it the other way, call it the other way. That's fine. Like the same way we would in pickup, like, hey, you good? Okay, let's go on. Going the other way. There's no need to sit there and complain or do anything like that. Okay, my bad. Got you in the face. You good? We good? Okay, let's go. Easy. Simple. But that series, I think, is going to be fun. And I just read on the Zion thing, he's getting reevaluated on May 1st. It doesn't mean he'll be back on May 1st, but May 1st is going to be Game 5. So the Pelicans just need to get one at least. And there's a chance that he can come back for Game 5. Game 6 is May 3rd, so it's probably more likely that he would come back for that Game 6 rather than that Game 5. But if he's progressing at the level that you were just talking about, which is on schedule, then May 1st is a possibility. May 3rd is probably more likely as long as there's no setbacks in his recovery. So let's hope he comes back, because if they can be down 3-2 in Game 6, or obviously even up 3-2 would be the better thing. But if they're down, say, 3-2 Game 6 in New Orleans, that could be tough. And then a Game 7's a Game 7. We all know whatever the series was going on, whatever happens, doesn't really matter. Game 7's are Game 7. So that's just when the stars come out, and that's when the big-time players become the big-time players in Game 7. So they can get Zion back for Game 6. Game 5 would be preferred, obviously, but Game 6 they'll be on their way to maybe upsetting the 1 seed for, like, I think maybe like the 5th time, possibly. I think it's like the 5th or 6th time. I think it was the Nuggets, the Mavs, the Bucks, all lost.
Who do you have?
There's the Nuggets 1. There could be another one. Could be another. I don't know. Either 4th or 5th time. One
and the Game 2s in general.
I was going to say, we'll go on. I was going to say tonight's game. So at 7 o'clock, you've got Orlando, Cleveland. 7:30, you've got You've got Philly in New York. And then at 10 o'clock, you've got LA, Denver. So I think I got Cleveland going up 2-0. I like the way they're locked in, their focus. I think Donovan Mitchell has a pretty big game. Still don't love the shooting aspect on the Magic. I think they do probably sneak out Game 3, all depending on how this game goes. I'll get a better feel. If Embiid is 80+%, I actually think that the Sixers take Game 2. I'm going to go with the fact that he's 80%. I think the Sixers sneak out Game 2. Kyle Lowry, Nick Batum, they have veterans who have been there. Tyrese Maxey was being able to get to the paint. I think that can still continue. And then, as I was saying before, I do think Denver's going to sneak out a win against the Lakers. I think it'll be a lot like Game 1, where it's close for 3 quarters. Denver just makes the plays down the stretch in the 4th quarter. I think Jamal Murray, after being, I think, 8 of 26-ish, roughly. He was roughly around that, like, not shooting great. I think he has a big game, 30+ tonight.
I already said I have Denver in Game 2 tonight versus the Lakers.
Yep.
I don't want to say decisively, but I could see it being like an 8 to 10 point victory for them. Let's go Magic Cavs. I think the Magic Game 2. I think they could steal it. I could see the Cavs riding a high and kind of not lollygagging their way through, or not necessarily not taking them serious, but more so the Magic matching their energy. Just having a game where they can muck it up defensively, because they can get real defensive too. Like they can get nasty on defense. So if they can muck it up, make it nasty, make some outside shots, and just get, a strength. Yeah, right. If they could get a strength and numbers type win, I think they could go 1-1 back to Orlando. And then Knicks Philly, I see it going a lot like Game 1. I think it's going to be physical. I think it's going to be even more physical. I think it's going to be ugly. I think you're going to get a Kyle Lowry special where he's just dogging Jalen Brunson. He's going to get that Knicks crowd just like, he's going to be enemy number 1 after this game, I think. I think he's just going to be doing some just questionably dirty shit, maybe diving at Jalen Brunson's knees on a loose ball type shit. I think it's going to be one of those games. I don't see – look, they're not going to get that shooting performance out of Josh Hart, and I don't know if they're going to get, a 15 to 20-point effort from McBride again, at least not in this game, right? Maybe later in the series. I don't know about back-to-back games. So even if Embiid had like a 22 and like 12 type effort, if he can just be aggressive, just assert his will on the game, just like have a threat of being an inside presence, maybe create some 3-point opportunities for guys like Tobias Harris and Nick Batum, Lowry, obviously, and Maxey can do what he does. That should be enough to win because, again, it's going to be an ugly series for Jalen. I don't see him having an efficient 30-point game at all this series. He might get his 30, but it might be on 28 shots type of thing. So, if you can continue. That's true. That's true. You did say that.
He's getting 52 one game. I think it's going to be game 5, though. He's getting himself a 50 ball one of these games. It's going to be on like 40 shots, but he's going to get a 50 ball.
Now that you say it, my 55 did not come true for Luka, so he's got to work on his 40-point series. What did he end up with yesterday? 36 maybe? It was mid-30s, I think. 33. So, okay, we need like a 48-point game, too, for Luka to, start scratching the territory of my 40 and then continue to get 40s after that. So,
yeah,
we'll need some big performances. But, no, I do think this is going to be an extremely ugly game. Exactly what we think from this series. And I think Philly, it'll be there for the taking for Philly as long as Embiid's somewhat okay, like you said, 80% or something. Just have a threat of an inside presence. And they should have enough to make it tough on New York. But I could see New York stealing it still. And if you're going back down 2-0, yeah, that's what the Knicks are supposed to do. But they have such a home court advantage that Philly would have no room for error in games 3 and 4. What about tomorrow's games? Who do you got? What's the 3 games tomorrow?
I was about to say, let's go into tomorrow and Wednesdays because they'll be covering all the game 2s. First game's going to be Phoenix versus the Timberwolves. I do think Phoenix sneaks this one. I do. I think Kevin Durant has still a very good matchup against Towns, Naz Reid, and Rudy Gobert, depending when they're cycling through. So I think Kevin Durant should have a big series. Devin Booker, something to play for, something to prove after having a 5-16 effort in game 1. Bradley Beal was 6-10, so if he can stay efficient, and then they need a Grayson Allen, at least 3 threes from him. But I do think that Phoenix can sneak out game 2. I think Anthony Edwards comes to play, but I don't know if they get 4 threes from Alexander Walker. I don't know. Also, Naz Reid, I just want to mention, I don't know who he thought. He thought looked like prime Kyrie over and then like the river. I don't know who.
It's Big Jelly.
I don't know who he thought he was, but shout out to Naz Reid. I don't think the Timberwolves are as hot from the 3-point line, and I do think that Phoenix can sneak out game 2. Do you want to go? You want me to go through all 3 of them, or do you want to go?
Barring injury, I think Phoenix wins games 2 and 3. So there you go. What's next?
Ooh, okay. Then I got Pacers, Bucks. I don't think Halliburton's turning it around. I think Dame is on a mission to prove. I love how Chris Middleton played. He's a big playoff performer. So I've got the Bucks in game 2. What do you have?
Yeah, it's going to be quite the documentary one day, Keenan. Like, we had the Linsanity documentary. I can't wait for the in-season tournament Halliburton documentary. They could even start it from last year because, again, he played at all-star level, close to it last year. Played for Team USA last summer. We didn't do well. We didn't do well with our Team USA, but he still made the cut for this next team. So he'll be playing important minutes next to the likes of LeBron, Steph, Kawhi, Kevin Durant. That's going to look great for the documentary. They'll have to edit out the scenes, of course, where he had 9, 7, and 8 in game 1 versus the Bucks. But, is what it is. So if we get another...
Kyle's going to become a Tyrese Halliburton hater overnight. People are going to be so upset.
Let me say it. I've been... Halliburton's a player I liked. He's one, I famously have not watched college ball forever, but I remember texting Esteban Ramos, a.k.a. Steven, who hopefully we can get on here, by the way. He has Sixers at 7, I believe, obviously. But he's got the Sixers making a run. Said he's not
Shout out
afraid
to
of
Steven.
any team outside of Boston in the East. So he's feeling confident. But I remember texting him on draft night 2020.
Good for
and
him.
we each said, we're like, I think I kind of like Halliburton as a big guard more than LaMelo. Like, he seems like he has something there. He's like, yeah, I agree with that. And so, kind of been on the Halliburton train since then. You saw how he played earlier in the year during his Linsanity run. So we'll see. I'm going to give you a stat line right now, Keenan. I think he's going to actually explode for 16. Let's go 15, actually. We'll keep it under his average. He's been averaging 16 since the tournament. We're going to say 15 points, 9 assists, 4 boards. All right. Maybe 2 threes. Does he get 2 3-pointers off? Maybe. Say 2 threes. And then I'll tell you what's going to happen. He's going to have another whack-ass game. No, by the way, nobody gave him, you're going to get me on a Tyrese Halliburton rant here. Nobody at all at any point during the game yesterday, not Grant Hill, not whoever was doing play-by-play, fucking mentioned how bad of a game or how just non-existent Halliburton was. They just were letting him go up and down the court as the number one player on that team, as someone who's going to be an all-NBA candidate. They were just letting him get his cardio with no smoke. Don't know when that ever happens. So he's gonna have another bad game on Tuesday or another non-existent game on Tuesday, and people are going to catch up and be like, hey, what's wrong with Halliburton? And then maybe in game 3 we'll see it. But I think in game 2 we get another dry ass Halliburton performance, and the Bucks will walk away with it. That was Tyrese Halliburton deserved 5 minutes, but I just gave him 5 minutes, so it is what it is.
This game might deserve 5 minutes. We got Mavs Clippers game 2 to end, then the nightcap. I think this series is going 7, and I think the Mavericks pull out game 2 because I think the Clippers take 1 of 2 in Dallas. So I think it's 2-2 going back to LA, but I do think the Mavericks take game 2 because I don't think Luka's going to be as cold as he was. I think Kyrie has been playing well, and I think Derek Lively is going to be big because I think they need a paint presence, and I feel like that's going to be a point of emphasis for Luka, Jason Kidd in that roster. So I think the Mavs pull out a close game 2, but then I think the Clippers maybe takes 3 or 4. I don't know yet, but one of the two.
I do agree. I think
Mavs
it'll
get
be
game 2,
a closer game. I think the role players will show up a little more for Dallas, a little more, whoever that might be, whether it's a Hardaway Jr. Kyrie played really well in game 1. So I think that'll be more of the same. I think Luke will have a cleaner game. Obviously, he got his stats yesterday, but I think it'll be a cleaner game. If that means what we said 33, he had an ugly 33.
Yeah.
If that's the case, then I mean he's gonna probably go for 40 plus tomorrow, if not high 30s. I think, like I said, maybe not 48, but he's gonna get to at least 40. I do still think the Clippers win, though. I think the Clippers go up 2-0. And then I think game 3, Dallas gets it.
Ooh. And then an all-important game 4. We'll see what happens. And then we'll quickly go into Wednesday's games. That's going to be Boston versus Miami. I think that this game is going to be closer. Boston's going to pull it out probably by like 12 or 14. They'll probably get up early in the end. And then I'm just going to quickly go here, too. I do think the Thunder pull out game 2. Actually, I like how the Pelicans are playing, but I think that the 1 seeds take care of business at home. They each go up 2-0. I think Shea has a better game. I think now that they've got more acclimated to that kind of playoff atmosphere, I think Shea's going to have a little bit better of a game, and the Thunder's going to take game 2.
Yeah, so I think, like I said earlier, I think Boston-Miami is going to be an extremely physical and ugly first half. I think that's where you're really going to feel Spoelstra. Yeah. They'll probably pull out that zone again, and it's just going to be physical. They're going to beat the Celtics up, and I think eventually the Celtics win by 15 or so. They pull away, whatever. Yeah, but they win.
I would say it's about the same.
Thing with the Thunder, I don't think, they went into crunch time last night with the Pelicans, but I think tomorrow will be their first true playoff game, or Wednesday will be their first true playoff game in a sense that you're going to have like Alvarado doing Alvarado things, like really trying to get in your head, really getting that Thunder crowd against him, that kind of atmosphere. And I think the Pelicans pull out an ugly game too. I think you're going to get enough scoring from Ingram and McCollum. Again, I think you're going to have those guys like Alvarado, like Herb Jones, really putting the pressure on SGA. It's putting the pressure on the Thunder and the perimeter players in general. I really like this matchup for the Pelicans. I think they get it to 1-1, maybe even 2-1 once they get back to New Orleans. We'll see, because they actually got a decent home crowd. But I do see it, no matter what, Keenan, once it comes to Game 5, I do think it'll be 2-2 going back to Game 5. Obviously, by then we'll have talked, but I do think this is a split series going back to New Orleans.
Okay. And we'll see that. Those are Game 2. Excited for tonight. Oh, it's going to be great nights of basketball, and that's the great thing about the first round. Obviously, when it gets later on, you don't have every day of basketball, but you got 2 or 3 games of high-quality basketball every single night, which is why the NBA playoffs first round is a beauty. But
let me ask you.
That was Kyle.
No, hold on.
Oh, sorry. Sorry, go on, Kyle.
Drake dropped his AI diss track. Did you hear it? What'd you think about it? What are your thoughts?
I actually haven't listened to it yet. So I have thoughts about the in general, but I haven't actually listened to it yet. I saw that there was like Snoop, Tupac, or whatnot. I know I got to listen to it. I've been kind of worried about other things. I have not listened to that yet, but Kendrick needs to respond. Like, we need to. You can't call out Drake and then Drake's going to just put out a diss track and then put out an AI diss track, and then you have Kanye dropping stuff. You've got obviously Rick Ross dropping stuff. You've got Chris Brown having his beef with, can't even think who right now, but like with Quavo. There we go, with Quavo. Like, you have everybody dropping diss tracks, and it really, the origin of it is the Like That verse. Really, like your verse on Like That. And then everyone's like, it's like diss season right now, and everybody's just throwing out stuff. And you started it. You got to respond to what Drake's doing right now. Like, you've got to respond. Like, we need, and this can't wait months. This can't wait for a while, because it's not like you are alluding to having a project coming on the way and you're going to try to respond there. You really started like the actual beef. I know First Person Shooter was kind of like a little bit of jabs, but like, you really started this. We need a response by May. Absolutely. Before May, but like by May 1st, we need a response from Kendrick. That's my thoughts. I will listen to the AI diss track, and I can give my actual thoughts on that when we come back on the next one. I don't know when, but on the next one, I'll give my actual thoughts.
So the diss track itself, I didn't mind it. When I first saw what it was, like, okay, Drake's got an AI diss track with Tupac and Snoop. Thought it was a little weird.
Yeah.
Was kind of ready to hate on it, but I'm like, let me listen to it. And I'll say this, it's creative. It's definitely creative. Obviously, it's, Drake written bars of Tupac and Snoop dissing Kendrick. So I like the tactic. The diss track, whatever, it's cool. Like, Drake's got some bars in there. Drake's got some good disses in there, whatever. It's memorable for, how he did it, not necessarily the song itself. So I like the tactic, and I don't want to spoil it for you, but, he was basically, and this is why he's smart, and this is because, Drake's got a rabid fan base like a Taylor Swift or like a Beyonce. He's got that type of fan base. And I was really surprised, Keenan, because the internet sentiment, which doesn't necessarily mean anything, or it could mean everything, depending on how you look at it, was a lot like what you said, that Kendrick needs to respond. And I thought that was kind of crazy because, Kendrick seemed to throw the first jab, first punch, whatever. And then Drake took about a month to respond. Now he's responded twice. And now everyone's like, oh, Kendrick's hiding. Where's Kendrick at? This and that. And I'm kind of like, damn, he kind of set it off. He doesn't need to respond by tomorrow. I see what you're saying. I think Kendrick could honestly wait till June and still be okay, especially if his diss track hits, whatever his response is. But I don't particularly see him dropping this week, even though there was a bunch of noise and a bunch of smoke that he was dropping last week and that it was ready to go. So maybe it will be sooner than later. But if it wasn't last week and it's not yet, he dropped that, what was it, Friday or Saturday? Might have been Saturday. So if he dropped it Saturday, we're not getting it Monday. We haven't got it by today. I don't know when to expect it. And I think when he does, I could see it being a few weeks from now when everything's died down, and I don't know, maybe it'll reignite everything. I don't really have a feel for it, honestly. The beef's gone way different than I'd thought with J. Cole bowing out. With Drake putting out 2 diss tracks, it's lost the rhythm that I ever thought it would have. So I really don't have a feel for it, honestly. So if you told me Kendrick came back next week, I'd believe it. But if you told me he came back mid-June, I'd believe that too. With a new project, by the way. Like, I could believe all that. So who knows? Who knows at this point? I do think it was a good tactic by Drake, though. I do like the tactic.
So, oh yeah, I agree with that. And I think the longer the Kendrick sits on it, the better the diss has to be, kind of thing. Like, but I agree with you. But like, whenever Kendrick drops like a full diss track on Drake, as long as it's not like a year from now when this like everything's really like kind of gone. Like, if it's within the next month, or a month, a little bit over a month, I agree with you that it's still going to shake everything, and people are going to be like, "Oh, Kendrick responded to Drake, he killed Drake, whatever, blah." But with these kind of beefs, you love it to be like, okay, so you respond, I'm responding a couple hours later, or like whatever it was. Obviously, Rick Ross is crazy he did 2 hours later, whatever. But like, you like it within a time frame. But like, Kendrick does have time, and I do agree with you there. I just have I don't know. I just think the more it goes on, the better the diss has to be. And I'm not saying Kendrick doesn't have the ability to drop something catastrophic, because he absolutely does. It's just that the more you wait on, you're like, okay, so we waited a month and a half to get something 7 out of 10. Like, okay, Drake's put out an AI diss track, and then another diss track, and then everybody else is dropping all this, and then nothing, and then we get like a cool diss track. Cool. But like, obviously, if he drops a 10 out of 10 bomb, doesn't fully matter. At least that's my opinion on it.
Yeah, I mean, look, I would agree with you if Drake had dropped something crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, he came with some pillow fight disses in that first one. Actually, sorry, I forgot about this, Keenan. So I completely forgot about this. He put, what was it, push-ups.
Yeah.
The first is. He put that on streaming services Friday or Saturday.
Yes.
That started it. And this was the lamest shit I've ever seen. We all heard it last weekend, right? We all heard it. We all reacted to it, blah, 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 blah. Then these Drake stans are talking about, oh, Drake put it up on streaming services. Kendrick's got to respond now. And I'm like, we been heard this. Like, why would it matter now that it's up for streaming for everyone to hear, and, you know, maybe he'll profit off it? Why now is that an official war declaration?
Yeah.
Like, we heard it. We been heard it. Like, that don't even matter. I thought that was whack. And then the fact that everyone's like, oh, 2 in 1 weekend with this AI diss, now Kendrick's really got to respond. I don't really believe that. They were cool disses. There were some bars, but it wasn't like it was either, right? It wasn't anything crazy like that. So I do think because of that, Kendrick has bought himself some time. If these were crazy disses and they were wild, disrespectful, then yes, I would be like, Kendrick's got to respond immediately. He's got to fight back, throw some punches. But I think, excuse me, I think he's all right now. I think if we waited 2 weeks, I think that'll only build for the anticipation. And, you know, you hear people more with the sentiment now that Control verse was overrated, which is cool. It's cool to think that. Like, I get why people would think that. That verse hit hard at the time. I can tell you that. It was refreshing for hip hop. I can tell you that. Much like this, like that verse was, much like that whole Future album was for hip hop. It was all refreshing. And, you know, Drake's fought back now, and now it's in Kendrick's court. But say what you want about Control, say what you want about Like That. Those are both just memorable verses. I have a hard time believing that Kendrick would come back with some mid. So whatever Kendrick does, I expect it to be loud. I expect it to hit hard. And I expect it to be much more ferocious than this AI diss track. So we'll see how it goes. But I can't wait.
Absolutely.
Right in the middle of playoff season too. So it's all fitting. It's all fitting. So
yeah, I was gonna say, when boys become men is when we got diss track season. So I love it. Is that it for you? Do you have any more that you wanted to, anything else on your mind?
That's it for me. No, it was a great sports weekend.
Yep.
We had the Devin Haney, Ryan Garcia fight. That was a great fight. Ryan Garcia showed the fuck out. Won a fight that no one thought he was going to win, given his antics leading up to the fight. So, yeah, good weekend for boxing. Good weekend for the NBA playoffs. Like we said, we got an AI diss track too. So it was plenty of entertainment to go around. So, and guess what? We got double quadruple headers this coming Saturday too, which will be, I think, mostly game 3s. So,
yep,
that'll be great. I can't
game
wait.
3s, couple game 4s
too.
Yep, game 3s and some game 4s. But this was the Warner Brothas Podcast. This is Keenan, joined by Kyle. Follow us on Live Take. That's at Cash Show. This is at Keenan Warner. We got, obviously, Warner Brothas Podcast on Instagram, TikTok. We even have a little bit going on Facebook, clearly on YouTube. So follow Warner Brothas Podcast everywhere. And we'll see you guys soon.